You're listening to the Racer to Racer podcast presented by Race 92. Race 92 is a vintage inspired racing apparel brand specializing in celebrating vintage race culture and adapting to motorsports today. Check out race92.com for all your racing merchandise needs. I'm your co-host, Aaron Mack, the other co-host. You may have seen coming out of a great clubs with a big old smile on his face. I'm already getting the intro mixed up. You may have seen him at a dirt track. Unfortunately, not the Chili Bowl, but you saw him on the live stream for the Chili Bowl. He is the one and only Scott Bowie.
Hello, Aaron. How are you?
Doing great. So, if anyone watched our Chili Bowl live stream on YouTube this past weekend, we would definitely appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. It went for like 6 hours. For those who don't know, we actually did it last year as well. It was on a different platform, but we also had a ton of fun with that as well. We got to have some great people on this time, so it was great time.
Yeah.
So
Unfortunately, one of our guests from last year, Kim Stewart, she wasn't able to be on. She was
yeah,
sick. But Kellen Conover was with us the entire time. And then, who we had? Robbie McGee,
and then Tanner Holmes.
Tice Carlson.
Tice, baby.
Tice, baby. Doug Wright. And then we had Pat Sullivan, Sprint Car Hall of Fame announcer, works with USAC. If you listen to Open Wheel Racing on Flow, he does a lot of the Flow broadcast, at least he did last year for USAC. He was actually calling in, and we were doing some live updates between
the races. Yeah,
this season of bees, and it was a great time. I had a really great time.
Yeah, what a blast! It's something that's definitely, I think, turning into a yearly tradition for us.
Yeah, it's just so much fun, and it was fun too to have some different people on and just get their stories and laugh and joke. And these are Tice is someone I know from way back when, and it's someone that Aaron knows from a lot more recently. And he was, fun with his time, gracious. Tanner, love talking to Tanner as a racer. I like talking to those young guys, and he's so switched on. And I think Tanner next year, if he's not driving out there, he's definitely going to be out there.
Yeah, 100%.
At least to watch. So,
and we were very fortunate. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say very lucky and had a lot of fun with these people.
And it was really cool to have Robbie McGee on. So he's someone who doesn't have really a background with, dirt racing, but he enjoys it. He doesn't know a lot about it, but he just enjoys it. So it's kind of cool to kind of get his perspective on it, his perspective about, doing other types of racing. One thing he has said in our interview that he would like the opportunity sometime to drive like a sprint car or a midget, just to know what it's kind of like. So always great having Robbie on. He's just really good at like, just breaking down things and explaining it. I just feel like he's really good at that. So it's always an honor having him on. And yeah, we're definitely, he says he really enjoys talking to us and enjoys, doing podcasts. So we'll definitely find some other stuff we can have him on in the future, because Robbie's a great guy.
Yeah, man, I really, really enjoyed talking to Robbie. And he's a smart dude. And he's, like you said, man, he's just a bright guy too. I mean, just the way he breaks things down and the way he looks at things. But yeah, very lucky. And we had at the time, I think when the stream ended, we had close to 900 viewers, and it's been viewed over 900 times. Yeah. So anybody out there who watched that, thank you very much.
And make sure you hit subscribe and like if you haven't. Also check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere podcasts can be found. Please follow and subscribe, and we appreciate everybody's support. And before we do anything else, our guest today is Conor Daly, which we actually talked a little bit about with Robbie McGee, because Robbie was actually friends with Conor when he was pretty young, and he actually was playing Xbox with them. I forget. I mean, Conor was like 16, so it's kind of a cool story.
Like 12.
Or 12. He was younger. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking of Chili Bowl, Conor went and ran the Chili Bowl.
Yep.
He didn't have the weekend he wanted. We were going to call Conor afterwards and talk to him. But good thing for Conor, he announced he has an IndyCar deal, and today was media day, so we didn't want to bother him. And so he has a full time. He's back with Carpenter Racing again next year. So congratulations to Connor for that. And his chili bowl didn't go the way he wanted to. He got upside down on the last night, but I think he'll take that and go run Indy cars and not think too much about it. So congratulations to him.
We did this interview back in the last week of December after Christmas between New Year's. So at the time he didn't have anything in stone or anything announced. So unfortunately, we couldn't really talk about that because it wasn't announced yet. But definitely great to for him to have a full season ride. I mean, I think it's easy to say this is probably the best ride he's had for a full season for sure. So definitely going to go to a more deserving driver and more talented driver. So it would be really cool to see what he can do in that car. I mean, I think Carpenter Racing has definitely proved in the last couple of years that they're able to win races and able to be competitive. So I'm definitely look forward to seeing what Connor can do.
Yeah, me too. And yeah, just like you said, I think this is going to be a big year for him.
Mhm.
And he was so close to win the 500 last year.
Right.
And we talked a little bit about it. In the middle of this interview, I actually have to jump off because I had other commitments, and Aaron had to carry us through. So thank you, Aaron, for doing so, and appreciate it.
I feel like a dog out of water without you, Scott.
Yeah, well, it seems like you paddled the
Or
shore
fish
just
out of
fine.
water, not a dog. I can't even think. You know what I mean, though.
Yeah, I had you covered though. I said you paddled the shore
Yeah,
just fine.
I did. You haven't even heard it, so I
Um,
may have just completely bombed it. You don't even know it.
yeah, this is true too. I'm sure you did well though.
Yeah, it was cool. It was just cool to talk to him. We talked a little bit about Amazing Race when you left, and a little bit about his friendship with Travis Pastrana. Pastrana's always someone I've always kind of idolized in my younger years, so that was pretty cool too. And I think it's someone Connor idolized too. And now he's pretty good friends with him. And he hangs out with him quite a bit, so he talks a little bit about that. So that was really cool as well.
Yeah, and yeah, just such a good guy. Good guy with his time too, and just very appreciative he come on. What we not much racing going on, but the Chili Bowl.
And who won that, Scott?
Um, huh?
Who won the Chili Bowl? Did we say that yet?
We have not. Tanner Thorson beat Christopher Bell to win, and they outdistanced Kyle Larson, who finished fifth or sixth. I don't know where he exactly beat. She didn't look good. Didn't look great all weekend. I didn't think.
Right. But it's
Tanner
amazing
Thorson
though.
sure.
It's
Yeah,
amazing. I mean, someone like Kyle Larson could be in a car that most people probably wouldn't even make the A with, but he's still competitive with it. You could tell that he was having issues with the car, and it wasn't exactly what he was used to, what he wanted. But he was still up there. So then that
yeah.
definitely
He
shows a lot.
definitely took a car that most guys, anybody in that top 10 probably would have made the show with it, but anybody outside of that may have missed a race with it, and he
Mhm.
ran her into the top 10. Um, Speaking of IndyCar, Santino Ferrucci unfortunately took a very hard crash out there, got concussion. So we hope Santino's feeling better. Um,
Yeah.
Man, that was a big ride.
Yeah, it
Got
was a
over
brutal
somebody's
one.
right rear in hot laps. Um, Chase Elliott got over a right rear during a race. About got it up into the grandstands there. He actually didn't almost get in the grandstands, but he was pretty close to clearing the fence. And so glad he's okay. Both big rides. Connor, he said he went to the corner, don't know what happened. Said just took off on him, got upside down. So Chili Bowl's hard. It's very tough, and
There was another
as
news story we missed. So they're the first ever female to make the A main.
that's right, Kaylee Bryson.
Yeah, so it was really cool to
Um,
see. And you could tell I mean, that was a win for her. So it was really cool.
well,
And I'm
she's
sure
from
she
out there
wanted to win
too.
the race, but you know what I mean. I mean, that was a big deal for her, obviously, and
I
was
mean,
definitely cool to
sh-
see.
she's from out there. She won her B main, I think it was. She started deep in field, won the
Mhm.
B main. started deep in the field in the feature and ran up. I forget exactly where she finished, but she ran up through the pack really well.
Yeah.
So she had an excellent Chili Bowl, and congratulations to her. Very well deserved. I've watched her for the last 2 or 3 years run USAC circuit, and man, she really showed why she deserved to be there. Other than that, not a lot of other news from the Chili Bowl as far as on that aspect. Today was IndyCar kind of first day of media, and it's where teams were announcing their deals and their drivers, and Floyd introduced a new driver. And how do you pronounce her name, Aaron?
Tatiani Calderon. I probably just
Yeah.
butchered that, so I do apologize. It's kind of a hard name to say, but I think that may be how you say it. But she's done. I think she did Indy. She didn't do Indy. She did one of the like Formula. She made it at Indy Lights. She's worked through part of the Road to Mazda championship. I know Road to Indy. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, no, I mean, I think she did that test last July or August. I think it was July in Mid Ohio. And she's hooked up with Rocket, and I know that they have like a they're trying to get more women involved in motorsports. So it's really cool to see another female in the sport, and we definitely wish her the best of luck. And yeah, seems like a great person, and yeah, it seems like a pretty good driver. So it'll be cool to see what she can do.
And it's going to be really interesting. So she's running all of the street and road courses
Yeah,
for Foyt. And then the ovals they haven't finalized the deal yet. A lot of talk is Hildebrand. A lot
yeah,
of
I would
talk is,
think it'd be Hildebrand.
I mean, that's talking, or Kimball. But, like somebody said, Ryan Hunter Ray sitting out there, and
And
they've worked together before.
he's driven for Foy. A lot of
Yeah.
people don't realize that it's kind of one of the forgotten rides.
So, I mean, and that'd be cool to see if that comes together.
Yeah,
Um, at least I'd like to see him run more than just Indy.
sure.
So if he can run, the ovals, that'd be cool.
Oh, absolutely, without a doubt. Well, only other thing I want to mention, I wanted to give a shout out to Racer Collect. So racercollect.com. We actually have Patrick Patton on our live stream. And he's been great. He's been giving us some plugs and actually helping us get some future guests. So we really appreciate that. Yeah, and if you're looking for any racing merchandise, we actually got to talk about that for a while with on the live stream with, I think it was Doug, right? With Doug
Yep,
and
Doug
Patrick,
Wright.
Doug Wright. And he really enjoyed that. Patrick actually said he'd like to pick Doug's brain a little bit because Doug seemed very, interested in it. So it was really cool. And yeah, great stuff. Driver merchandise. They work directly with drivers, so the racing memorabilia is real. So definitely, go to racercollect.com and check them out.
Yeah, Patrick, good dude, and it was fun to have him on the show. And he and Doug really, kind of were really discussing the collectors market a little bit. And Doug is a friend of mine. He ran midgets and some road racing stuff and that when he was younger. He is the winner of the Purdue Grand Prix, which for anybody out there knows is
That's really cool.
it's a go-kart race that Purdue has. I forget how many hours it is, but it's a big race that they have up there. And so that's he's such a fun dude. I've known him for a very long time, and I was really glad Doug could come on.
Oh, absolutely. And yeah, so next week what we're doing, we're going to do a little different show. We're going to do a 24 Hours of Daytona preview. So we're going to have 2 interviews, I believe. We just recorded one. So we're trying to get a more current driver who's driven in it more recently, and then we're going to get more of a legend of the 24 Hours of Daytona. So we're definitely looking forward to releasing that one. And yeah, no, it's I really enjoyed just doing the interview that we did. So I think it'll be pretty cool.
Yeah, it was great, and special thanks for him for coming on. And then we've got the other interview coming up here in the next few days. That will be great, and then we can release that show and as a just a mini tribute to 24 Hours of Daytona and kind of our way of just acknowledging the race as in our way, obviously. And so it's fun to be able to do shows like the Chili Bowl show and to be able to do the 24 hours kind of tribute show, whatever you want to call it.
Right. And I know in the future we like to do maybe some more stuff like that. I don't know what exactly, but we can definitely figure something out. I think there's a lot of potential with that. And I really enjoy them. So it's kind of cool. It's almost like I don't know, just like a meeting room or just like a hangout. Like you never know who's going to come on. Like we send the link out to a bunch of people and, you just get people just kind of jump on. It's kind of cool.
Yeah. I really enjoy that type of format. Like we did with the Chili Bowl, where people can just come on and bounce in and out, and really laid back situation, and they can share their stories, or we can talk the races, or we can do whatever, and hopefully in the future we can do other races besides that. So yeah, anyway, that it was ton of fun.
Well, yeah, thanks everyone for listening. Like I said, if you haven't hit like or subscribe, please do so. Check us out on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, anywhere podcasts can be found. And yeah, stay tuned for other great interviews that we have lined up. And yeah, I hope everyone enjoys the Conor Daly interview. Like we said, great guy to talk to. And yeah, I hope everyone has a great week.
Take care, everybody. Thank you.
Our guest today drove in the 2021 IndyCar Series season with Ed Carpenter Racing and Carlin Racing. He has driven in 8 Indianapolis 500s. We're joined by Conor Daly. Hey, Conor, thanks so much for coming on. How's it going?
No problem. It's great. Just ready to get to 22, I guess 2022 at this point.
Yeah, it'll definitely be here. We'll be here in a few days, but the racing season will be here before you know it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of hype around IndyCar right now. A lot of stuff going on. And I hope to be a part of it, but yeah, it's going to be, seems to be a pretty exciting season shaping up in front of us for sure.
Right. Well, so obviously racing is on both sides of your family. So what was your earliest racing memory that resonates with you the most?
Well, I mean, for me early on, and my dad, my dad retired when I was born, right? So I didn't actually see my dad do any racing, but he was working in TV. So I immediately, was at the racetrack from a very young age. I was always at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway because my mom worked there. So everyone was there. Everyone was around the racetrack. And yeah, I was just kind of immersed into it ever since I could really start retaining memories. So, always thought it was the coolest place to be, especially the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in general. And really, like when I was younger, that was really the only place that we went, but we were there for a whole month because, my family was there all month. So, as we got a little older and my little brothers, were born as well, started to travel a little bit more. But yeah, I was always around it ever since I could really start remembering things. And it was just something that was so fascinating to me.
And I know sorry, Scott, go ahead. Please go ahead.
Go ahead, Aaron.
I was going to say,
just what was your first, so sorry. Hey, was your first experience racing yourself? Was it like in a kart or kind of how did that go for you?
Yeah, it's always kind of an interesting story. Everyone thinks that like my dad just kind of got me into it, but it was never really the case for him. He always wanted to make sure that I kind of instigated that want to go racing. We actually had a neighbor of ours at the time buy a go-kart, and they asked my dad to come help them out because they obviously knew he had experience in racing and knew about it. And then I just kind of tagged along. And then I got into said go-kart. And we eventually bought that go-kart from our neighbors. They weren't that into it. And I was, and so we decided to give it a shot. Very, very basic. When I look back at the go-kart back in the day, it was, it was a heap of junk, but we got into it and, started at Whiteland, Indiana, Whiteland Raceway Park, Sarah Fisher owns now. And yeah, I started from there. I started later than most though. I mean, 10 years old. Some people you ask, they started when they were 4 or 5.
right.
But yeah, I kind of, once I got into it, it was, we started locally and then realized that, we needed to go nationally and start really, really competing against, the best in the country. And yeah, it was just a year by year process.
So obviously you were around the Indy 500 a lot as a little kid. So would you say like your initial goal was to race in the Indy 500? I mean, I know that, Formula One was kind of a thing for you at one point.
I think in general, my goal initially was to go to Formula One. I think there was obviously a lot of IndyCar influence around me, but I also didn't know how to get there. And then when we started looking at things and started looking at the routes to go to make it to the top, I actually don't think there was a goal. I think everything that I used to tell people growing up as well was like, I just want to make it as a professional race car driver. Like it didn't matter where it was. But as long as and I think I kind of figured that out when I was like 16, 17, because once you get into cars, like you can't possibly put a goal in place when you're 14. Like, yeah, we all have dreams to go race in Formula One or whatever it is, Indy 500, but like, you're not even close enough yet to really consider what is actually going to be your path. And I kind of forced myself into figuring out a path because we won all the championships. So like, that was like really helpful. Like we were like, oh shoot, like, well, we're winning now. And so now we gotta have a path, like where are we going to go? And my dad and I talked about it for a long time because everyone was wanting to have me stay in IndyCar. Like it was like, you're on the road to Indy, you're winning the road to Indy championships. We didn't have, we had Graham Rahal was a young American at the time. Ryan Hunter-Reay was a young American at the time, but you didn't have the Rossies yet. You didn't have the New Gardens yet. You didn't have anything like that yet. So, there weren't a ton of young Americans as much as I would say now. So everyone was kind of hinting at us to stay here. And obviously the Road to Indy scholarship was just kind of formulating at the time. But when I won the Pro Mazda championship, which is, I don't know what, Indy Pro 2000 now, whatever it is, we kind of had a decision to make. And it said, look, you only get one shot to go over to Europe and try to pursue Formula One, especially as an American. So, when I was 18, I was like 17 turning 18, we just decided that, look, we have a scholarship fund. We can get into Europe for year one, also still compete in Indy Lights to try to, dabble a little bit over there. And so that was kind of the big decision that we made to go pursue Formula One, because you really only get one shot at it. It was worth it for sure. Got to race against a lot of incredibly talented people over there, and win some races and compete for a championship, at a very, very high world-class level, I would say, which is nice.
When did you start realizing that dream of being an F1 just wasn't going to work out? I mean, just for whatever reason, it wasn't in the cards.
It was just one race. I can point to my European career ending immediately. We were leading the F3 championship in Monza, and I got taken out, and we didn't score points that day. So Danny Kvyat ended up winning the championship, which is obviously Red Bull Formula One driver, I pointed to it because that I had to win the championship in my contract with Force India, because I was their development driver at the time, and they were going to continue funding my racing into F2, and then potentially have some Friday practices with the Formula One team. But I had to win the championship. And so when we got taken out, we lost 25 points. And then that was it. So, the next race, oddly enough, the way F3 worked out at the time, you have race one where you qualify for, and then race two, you start wherever you finished, in the second race, and then the top eight's inverted. And so I started 27th and finished 8th and fast slapped the race. Probably one of the best drives in my life. But again, didn't matter. That got us 3 points. So it was one of those things that was, really, really, really frustrating, because I can point exactly to where my European career ended, and that was it. So that was kind of when, as soon as you lose the funding and the support from a Formula One team like that, it's hard to really gain back, because we didn't have much support from anyone in America really at all, to kind of help us keep going. So it is what it is.
You tested a Formula One car, right? For Force India, you got to drive one.
Yeah, we did 3 days, 2 in 2012, 1 in 2013 as part of our program. And I did all their simulator development from 2013 or 2012 to 2013 as well.
So once you realized that just the funding wasn't going to be there, and did you immediately start looking to come to America and run IndyCar, or was that just by happenstance?
Well, so I was kind of already there, because 2013 was the last year. That was the year that I lost the F3 championship, but that was also my first Indy 500 that year as well. So
right.
I'd kind of already dipped my toe in there and I know what was going on. And I was talking to teams, still communicating with them. And, but there's still this, after the F3 championship, I mean, it was GP3 at the time, and then GP2, which is now F2. There were teams that were talking to us, and I tested for ART after the F3 season. Like, we were testing for these teams. They were offering us tests and drives. And I don't know if it was the right move at the time to do what we did, because I had no funding to do anything. So, like, even if I went back to America, like, I had no shots at doing, the Indy 500, whatever it was. But I had this shot to go with this GP2 team, which was the worst team on the grid. We got asked to launder money that year. Like, it was, GP Venezuela. It was just a wild scene. Didn't even do the full season. We missed out like on 5 races because they sold the seat to someone else. So it was a complete disaster of a year in 2014. But I mean, racing GP2 was awesome. And again, got to, we raced, that was the year Stoffel Van Dorn won the championship. Marcus Ericsson was there. All these guys, really, really good drivers again. And we scored several points for this team, which I don't think they had done before, which was cool. And actually that Rossi was racing F2 that year too. So me and Rossi were racing GP2 together. But yeah, it was really end of 2014. It was like, all right, hang this up. Like, we just got to go fully back to America. And we did. But 2015, I mean, I didn't have a full-time ride in anything. Like 2015, we had the Indy 500 only, and I did the Rolex 24 maybe, and our car got wrecked in the middle of the night, when we were leading the race. So like a lot of stuff kicked off that we were just kind of hoping we'd stay in the fight. And sure enough, 2015 was a wild year, and we did get opportunities in IndyCar, and then kind of went from there.
So 2013 obviously was your first year in the 500, and it was with AJ Foyt. I mean, obviously, probably not the strongest team, but I mean, you were racing for a team with, AJ Foyt's absolute legend of, Indy 500 IndyCar racing. So what was that experience like?
Well, I mean, I think you learn a lot about it afterwards. Like, I thought it was amazing. I had Ray Lato as my engineer. Ray Lato, he's an incredible engineer. Actually still an engineer that I wish I could work with again in the future. But we also, I think we're limited in certain areas. But in the end, it was at that time, like, that car was great. Like, I think some of our best IndyCar racing was with that first gen of the new IR, whatever, the DW12, right? Like, the new chassis. That first year, like 2012 and 13, like, that body style was like great racing at the Speedway. It was well sorted out. And so the racing was actually quite fun. And like the driving of that car was pretty enjoyable. So I think looking back on it, like, I needed to learn a lot, and like, I didn't have a lot of oval experience. I crashed in practice, and, we think we learned that, the right rear tire went down, but like, it doesn't really matter. It was one of those things that like really kind of shakes you a little bit. Like, cause everyone always says like, well, there are those who have crashed at Indy, then there are those who will. Right. So like, it's always going to happen to me in practice. Right. But it was definitely an experience. I think we had a great race, even though we were on fire twice during the race. But again, that's all part of, I guess, the rookie experience. Sometimes you got to go through those things.
Now that, so since you were kind of bouncing back and forth at that time, were you able to really enjoy that first 500? And of course, like you said, you crashed already, but by race day, were you able to take it in, or was it just something? Hey man, I'm just doing this. This is just kind of something I'm doing on my way to doing something else.
No, I mean, it was the coolest thing ever. I think that was for sure. I mean, it was a very tough schedule for me. Like, I had literally raced in GP3 in Spain and was on the podium and came right back. I had to do rookie orientation, like, after they did rookie orientation. Like, we had to run a special morning session just so I could get caught up, which was awesome. And then, yeah, I mean, the race day experience, I mean, we had to fight to get in the race too, which was really annoying. That was the worst experience. But like, it was all part of it. Like, I feel like I got everything in, and then like, as soon as the banquet was over, I went right back to Europe and won the next F3 race. So it was like, it wasn't like we had a tough time bouncing back to what I was doing. You know what I mean? We literally qualified on pole and won the next race. So it was like, all right, I guess I still remembered how to do this. You know what I mean? So it was pretty cool. And, it definitely stuck with me. I was like, I really want to do that again. Like, I really like, this is just, and every year I feel like I get the same experience though now too, because it's the greatest thing in the world. Like, it's just the greatest event, the whole process. It's, and for sure that one, without a doubt, stuck with me for a very long time. And it always will.
So was that your first time actually in an IndyCar then, in 2003 at IMS, or did you drive IndyCar before that?
No, so I had tested once because at the time, Takuma couldn't get in the country for some reason. So they needed a driver to test. It was like end of 2012 into 2013. And so I tested at Sebring with a bunch of people. And that was the only day that I had in the car. But after that, they signed, like, Foyt immediately offered me a contract for the 500. So I was like, all right, cool, great. So I guess the test went well. And yeah, so I had never driven an IndyCar on an oval until rookie orientation there at IMS. And never raced an IndyCar.
Right.
How many 500s do you run now?
So I'm at 8.
Yeah.
So hopefully 9 next year.
And obviously this year was obviously what appeared to me at least be, you're the driver, you tell me, but the strongest, like, you had a legitimate shot. I turned to the people I was standing with. I said, man, this looks like Conor's day. And unfortunately, I cursed you because a couple laps later, a mysterious tire falls from the sky. Yeah, it just falls from the sky. And you have nowhere to go, and you hit it. And unfortunately, the day was over. But I mean, when you look back on those days, and you've worked so hard to stay in the sport. I mean, anybody that's followed your career knows the things that you've done. I mean, essentially, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but essentially racing for free. Just trying to stay in the sport, doing everything you can, and then you've got the biggest event on the biggest stage late in the race. You're now one of the favorites. I mean, and I know the frustration had to be just incredible. At the same time, a couple of days later, can you look back at that and go, man, I can really do this? At least I'm proving my worth here.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think there's always situations where in racing, people close to you will tell you, like, oh, it was great. It was going great. Like, you could have had it here and there. And like, that's your mom, your dad, like they'll tell you anything was good. You know what I mean? And like, some of your people around you, but like when enough people that you don't even know were like, hey, I really think that you could have won that race. Like that then like kind of goes into your head a little bit more, like, yeah, I like, and even me myself, like, I thought we had a great car all month. Like, even from week 1, I was like, I think this car is incredible. You know what I mean? So, and then the team was doing a great job. Obviously, all 3 of our cars were fast. But when it came to running in traffic in practice, when it came to, carb day, like, I thought that there was only really going to be 2 or 3 guys that we really, really were going to be up against in a really difficult manner for the win, which it always is in Indy, right? You're always going to have 2 or 3 guys that are for sure always at the front, and they're going to stay there. And for us on that day, like, it was an incredible feeling because we did everything that we needed to do. We strategized our way to the front because we obviously didn't qualify well. And I mean, it was going the way it should go. Like, once you get to the front, it's much more simple. But the problem is it's really hard to stay there because everyone else is trying to do the same thing. And you lose 1 second in the pit stop from P1, like, or you lose 1 second anywhere, whether it's on an outlap or traffic. Let's say you come out behind a car. There were a couple cars that were like really, really slow at one point, in that race. You lose 1 second, you lose the toe a little bit. That's a race killer almost. So it's, it was one of those things that just everything had to be perfect, and it was going the right way. Like, we were still in contention when Graham had his little deal with the tire, and yeah, it was a shame for sure. But those moments before that, right? Like the leading all the laps that we did, asserting ourselves up front multiple times, That stuff might literally guarantee me a place in the series again next year. You know what I mean? Like something like that, where everyone sees it, everyone gets motivated by it. What the crowd did, I think, was it's still very emotional for me to look at, because like I think it's just the coolest thing ever, because like I love that race, love everything about it. But it just goes to show you that like any race can change your future. And like that moment, although we did not get the finish that I think that we deserved, that still might get me another chance for the next year or two. You know what I mean? Which is really cool. So, we've been working on a lot for next year. And I think that's a real selling point, is like, hey, look, like, I think people believe that we can. I mean, I've always believed that I could do it, or else I wouldn't be here. But I think with the right opportunity, with everything going, how we wanted it to go, we put ourselves in position. That's all you can do.
So in the past several years, you've driven for as many. Well, let's see here. 2019, you drove for actually 3 different teams. So pretty much for the past few years, you've driven for at least 2 different teams. How hard is that in the middle of a season to go from one team to another team?
Well, it's hard because no one trusts anyone. You know what I mean? Like everyone, like I'm just trying to do my job. Like there were situations where drivers either got injured or they needed someone to either reevaluate what was going on or anything like that. But everyone's not going to be truly, when you prepare for a race, you want to look at the setup sheet. You want to look at what's going on. I want to see technically what's happening. But you really can't do that sometimes, because teams really don't want to share what they got going on unless you're there. So it's a difficult thing to really be as prepared as possible. And obviously you put a lot of pressure on yourself as well, because for that, at that time I was, again, trying to solidify the fact that like, I can do this. I can compete with these guys. Like, I know that this is possible, you know what I mean? And so every time you put pressure on yourself, because again, you don't want to be that guy that gets in the car and you crash, because that's the first thing where it's like, all right, well, we gave him a shot and it is what it is. But like, we never did that, which is, something that I think, again, helps me, stay in the game. Like same thing with, ECR last year, like never crashed in a race. Well, except for Texas, when we got flipped upside down with Carlin. So, it was like one of those things where I can point to like, my career is becoming more refined, and like all this experience that I have now is helping me make better decisions and make, experience decisions. But still, I have not had a year with one team since 2017. So like it's been a wild run of just all over the place. And if there's one thing that I would like before the end of my life, is to have like one full season with a team, or maybe even a 2-year deal. Who would have thought that's even possible, where we can just focus in on doing our jobs, as best as possible, and continue to build this continuity that's so helpful. I mean, there's a reason why Scott Dixon hasn't left Ganassi for 300 years. You know what I mean? Like, because he's those are his guys. You know what I mean? It's just, right. And it's the same way with a lot of different people. Ryan Hunter-Reay was with Andretti for so long. Kanan was with Andretti for so long. These guys. Joseph's going to be with Penske for 100 million years. Elio was with Penske for forever, because like once those guys find their guys, like that's what makes them be so successful every weekend. And so I hope that I can build that with a team, and be really, really cool to do so.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm going to have to jump off here. Aaron's going to take the rest of this interview. Conor, you're a fan favorite, and there's a reason why. I mean, it's you're a good dude. I've always enjoyed following your Indy career. Man, something I really wanted to talk about is you run the Chili Bowl coming up. Midgets and sprint cars, that's where I live. And if you wouldn't mind, and I know you're a very busy guy, after this year's Chili Bowl, would you mind coming back on and just talk about that experience?
Yeah, sure. I don't see why not. Yeah, I mean, it'll be fun. I hope. I got to do better than last year or 2 years ago.
Man, the Chili Bowl, it's all. I mean, that is luck. I mean, you make your luck in life. I firmly believe that. But again, you can't help falling race cars from the sky or whatever, right? And that's what happens at Chili Bowl. I saw your laps at down there in North Carolina. What is that, Millbridge?
Yep. Yeah.
You're up on the fence, man, and you look good. And I mean, I've watched you run. I think I've seen you run midget probably 6 or 7 times, and or maybe 4 or 5 times. Anyway, you've gotten so much better. I think, and that's a hard discipline for people. Don't realize how hard that is. And I think that's a testament to your skills. And
Thank you,
man, it'd be awesome if you could come back in and talk about that, and we can talk a little more about your IndyCar career. Aaron's going to take it from here. Thank you so much. Very appreciated.
No problem, man. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
All right, see you, Scott.
Take care, bud.
So, we're talking about the Chili Bowl a little bit. So how did that whole thing start with racing on dirt?
Honestly, it was really through David Bird, who was my sponsor my rookie year. Bird and all those guys, the Bird family, they were kind of my first foray into full-time IndyCar racing. So they were always big into dirt. They sponsored Brian Clausen, obviously, for many, many years. Brian was my teammate at the 500. And so they kind of suggested it, and I turned it down for a long time. And then it was after Brian passed away, actually, that I was like, man, he always told me to come try out a dirt car. So I was like, for sure, like, I think I got to do it now. And so we ended up doing it, and it's definitely very, very difficult, but it's something that is, I don't know why I keep doing it. Every time I do a race, I tell myself I'm not going to do it again. And then an opportunity comes up or a sponsor comes by that wants to do it. And I'm like, all right, fine, I'll do it. And I really have enjoyed getting better at it. But yeah, it's a tough craft to learn. It's a whole different style that I never grew up doing.
Right. I watched the video on YouTube from like 10 years ago with Alex Lloyd. I think it was for like Car and Driver. And he was at racetrack in California, I think Corey Cruiseman's school. And he was just talking about how, like, it's just, your whole life you learn how to, drive on pavement. And then you do something that basically goes against everything you've ever learned. And he was saying, like, it'd almost be easier, like, if you've never raced at all, because your mind is programmed for the past 10 years to do something. And all of a sudden you have to do like the exact opposite. Did you find that issue a lot?
Yeah, for sure. And it's still something that I don't understand. Even at Millbridge, when we were testing a couple weeks ago, I had Christopher Bell there and Chase Briscoe, right? Those guys are smart guys. Christopher Bell is one of the most talented guys I've ever seen on dirt, for sure. Right. And he's trying to tell me, this, that, and whatever. And it is really interesting. It's a style that doesn't make sense. And for me, I'm still wrapping my head around it, but we made a lot of progress. Like Christopher Bell came up to me after our last run, he's like, man, like, those were really good laps. And so, like, I think I'm kind of understanding it, but the hardest part is it changes every run, and the track conditions change. So for me, I'm very much like an informational guy. Like, when I get to the racetrack in an IndyCar, like, I'm going to break at the 200-meter board, and I know that I can potentially push it maybe 50 meters more in qualifying. I'm a reference points guy. Always reference points. And in the dirt, your reference points are always changing, it seems like. And there's always something that's different about the track the next time you get out there. So that's just kind of a different feel, and just an odd sensation. Right.
And besides like the midget stuff, you've been racing a lot of stuff. You've been doing like the trucks. And I know, and that probably happened through Travis Pastrana, right? Because I know he had a kind of deal with Nice Motorsports.
Yeah. We just decided over through 2020, as we were all playing iRacing together, that we should go racing in real life. And we were actually originally trying to get like 6 trucks for like half of us. Like, it was going to be, we were trying to do a deal for like me, Rossi, Hinch, Travis, and like Parker was already going to be in there, and he was part of the LCQ league. But like, we were going to legitimately try to raise money to like enter 5 trucks in this race so we could all race in real life. But turns out, Alex is a Honda guy, Hinch is a Honda guy, couldn't do it. It was like all the, we had all these different conflicts that people couldn't do it. And then me and Travis were just like, well, we're still doing this, right? And so we did. And yeah, it was awesome.
How crazy is that guy? Obviously, like he was like one of my, heroes growing up. It seems like he's a little more kind of reserved now since he has a family, but it still seems like he's still pretty crazy. I know he has tons of like issues with concussions and stuff, so he has to be careful. But it seems like he still does pretty crazy stuff. I see that you've been at his house a couple times.
Yeah, I don't think that guy's backed off the throttle at all. I think he knows when to back off the throttle, but I truly have never seen a more exhilarating human being in my life, and someone who wants everyone to have fun as well. Like, I think there needs to be about 10,000 more people like Travis Pastrana spread across the world, because the happiness, the kindness that
yeah.
he treats people with is just outstanding. As a person of his stature and his just fame and just incredible athleticism, you know, he could easily be not a nice person because he deserves to be. Like you
Sure.
when you are that level of talent, you could probably do that, but he does not. I mean, he loves having his friends with him, loves having a great time. The guy flew to Vegas for my birthday for 12 hours, essentially,
Wow.
like, literally just to come and hang and party with us for a night and then go back to his family like he promised them he would. And I was like, man, I mean, no one else did that. Like, I was like, there's a lot of people that I invited, you know, couldn't make it. And like Travis was in California testing, stopped in Vegas for a night just for my birthday, and then went back home. So like, I think I hold Travis at a very, very high level of respect. And yeah, the guy still can just rip a double backflip at any point on a motorcycle, and just, you know, you better be ready for it.
Yeah, going back to, you know, him being super nice. Every time I met him, I mean, he treats you like you're his long lost friend. So always super nice guy. And a lot of people
Yeah.
aren't like that. Like you said, there's people that are a lot smaller than him that aren't friendly at all. So it's definitely cool.
I think a lot of people can learn from Travis. I think a lot of people can learn from him, because it's like, man, and even like even some like NASCAR and IndyCar drivers, I'm like, we are not that cool. Like, just don't, like, you don't need to be the way you are, because there are people like Travis who are so wildly famous and so widely known. I mean, and he will talk to you. He will do what he needs to do and have a great time with you either way. And like, that's awesome.
And a lot of people don't realize he was very close to driving the IndyCar in 2011, because I remember him saying that he actually had a test, I think with Andretti, and I think he broke his leg or something, but he was supposed to drive in the Vegas race in 2011 when they were doing all that stuff.
Yeah, I think he at this point, he's like, no shot. He's like, you guys are crazy. But I have no doubt that he was close to doing something like that. Because I think, again, like, once he got it back into the truck with me, like, I think he wants to do more NASCAR stuff now too. Because it's just like, it truly is enjoyable. And like, I love being his teammate, because I think it's like, it's cool to see his work ethic, and like watching him at the Nitro Rallycross events as well. Like, he loves to have a great time, but like, he is truly there to win. Like, he doesn't, and he tells me every time I hang out with him, he's like, Connor, you just need to win. I said, I am trying my heart out, Travis. Like, I promise you, like, there is nothing in my life that I want more than to win. And like, the funny thing is like, I only ever really consider wins in IndyCar. Like, I've been winning like in the Lamborghini Super Trofeo Series. Like, I've won a bunch of other stuff really randomly, but like, I don't even like, it doesn't even like, I can't even see it unless I'm looking at IndyCar podiums and wins. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm trying to do that, and that's what I want to do. And I think Travis would be very proud. And that's, you know, if I can make Travis proud, then that's important.
Have you driven one of the rally cars at the Nitro Rally at all?
I tested one in 2016 after my first IndyCar season. Yeah. So they're pretty cool.
It was probably what, GRC back then.
Yeah,
remember.
yeah. I almost did a Nitro Rallycross race. We were set to do one in the Glen Helen, but the plug got pulled on it like very, very last minute, which was a shame. And Travis was pretty upset about it as well.
But I remember turning on ESPN one day and they had the boat racing on, and you were doing it. It was Travis Pastrana at the Invitational. Well, I mean, was there any relation to actually, you know, racing a car, driving a boat?
Nothing. It was the weirdest thing. I was terrified the whole time. Anything you try to learn or you try to use from car racing just doesn't work. But it was a heck of a weekend. It was a wild time. And Travis brought together some pretty incredible characters to be a part of this thing. You know, met an incredible American hero, Marcus Luttrell, the lone survivor. And like, that was really the coolest part of our weekend, me and my friends, because we got to hang out and drink shots of Jack with Marcus Luttrell, which is something that I feel like, you know, not a lot of people have the opportunity to do and hear about American hero. So we loved it. It was an incredible experience.
And for those boats, they have someone who actually does a throttle, and then they have you just did the steering wheel, right?
Yeah, so they try to make it a little bit safer, because the throttle is very, very important. But the steering guy, he can kind of read what I'm doing, and and I don't have to worry about the throttle. I'm just driving. Like I'm hoping to hit the right waves, hit the right corners the right way, get it close to the buoys, and it was actually a really interesting experience.
I remember Watson. I thought they said there was someone who couldn't swim. That wasn't you, was it?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I'm not like, because we all have to go through like safety
Right,
tests
that's what I thought.
and I'm fairly sure everyone passed that test. I'm not entirely positive.
Yeah, because they put you in that that thing they put in the pool. They flip it over in the pool,
Yeah,
right? And you have to
which
get
was
out of
terrifying.
it. Oh, I
Yeah.
bet. But
I
they
hate the idea of drowning and the idea of anything like that. So like when they flip that sucker over and you can't see anything and you got this oxygen thing in your mouth, it was that was the worst part.
Oh, I bet. One of the last things I want to talk to you about, obviously you did the amazing race with Alexander Rossi. When was that? 3 years ago, 4 years ago?
Yeah, it was we did it end of the 2017 IndyCar season.
Who kind of came up with the idea of doing that? How did that kind of come into us? And
It's really IndyCar, honestly. IndyCar was at that time was pitching drivers to really any show possible because we need to attract more eyes and we need to get attention. That's the biggest problem with IndyCar is like no one knows that we're racing. So that's, part of the reason why Elio got Dancing with the Stars. Incredible personality, Indy 500 champion. Maybe we can get people to watch IndyCar. Same with Hinch, right? Incredible story, nearly died, pole sitter at Indy 500, great personality. Let's hopefully we can get people more in IndyCar racing. And it was kind of the same thing for me and Alex. And I was actually third choice on that as well. It was going to be Alex and Hinch, but Hinch couldn't do it because he's Canadian. He had to have all American passports for this show.
I realize that.
And then it was then it was Alex and Spencer Pigot. And Spencer Pigot had to do like a test day or something while they were supposed to be filming. And then they rolled over to me, obviously. And I was like, yeah, for sure, I'll do it. I'm a little bit offended that I was third choice, honestly.
Right.
I loved that show growing up, and I was like, why are we not doing this? Turns out it was, it worked out well. And I think they came to me like basically it was in the middle of probably the middle of the season, because we had to do auditions like in the middle of the season in between like the Iowa race and something else, where we had to like sit in a hotel in LA for like 3 days.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that.
Not many people knew that, but yeah, we had to do that, and it was it was totally worth it. Like it was a hard process. It was very, very difficult to do all the stuff and all the everything, but it was fun. And looking back on it now is pretty cool to say we did it.
Oh, right. Absolutely. I know one of the years of Amazing Race, and it's unfortunate it happened. Then I think they were like Charlotte Speedway or something, driving NASCARs around the track. I think you guys definitely would have had a little bit of an advantage on that.
Oh yeah. Well, the funny thing is the creator of the show, Bertram, he wore his Ferrari hat every single day of production. Like he was a huge race fan. We walked into the audition room, and he knew everything about Alex, knew everything about me. We just had a conversation. Everyone was like really nervous about going in there. Like it's like a 2-minute thing. All the producers are in there. We're being filmed, and Alex and I just went in there like, hey man, how's it going? Just talking about racing, and then talked about ourselves. And then we were out of there. We're like, yeah, we got this show. Like we'll be fine. Sure enough, we talked to old Bertram every single day about racing. And when production was over, we had conversations about F1 and all kinds of stuff. And he sent me an email just 3 weeks ago, and I still keep in touch with him. He's a good guy.
So after you with Amazing Race, like after you reach like the whatever you call it, pit stop or whatever for the day, you're done until like 8 or 9 the next day, right? Like you get to go to the hotel, and then like there's a start time, or how does that work?
It just depends on where you're going next. And so the pit stops were always they basically say they're 12 to 48 hours. So the first one was pretty short because we were just going from Iceland to Europe, right? So like it's not a long flight. But when we went from like Africa to Bahrain, that was a long, like you have to send all the crew first, and they go and set up wherever you're going to get set up. And we have no idea, but we basically get told, I think once we go back to the hotel, they feed us and they're like, all right, you're leaving at, be ready to leave at 4:30 in the morning tomorrow or something like that. So you get an idea, but you never know where you're going, and you just kind of wait till you show up. And some of the leave times were terrible. It was horrible one morning in Belgium. It was like freezing cold, raining, and it was like 3:45 in the morning. And then you have to sit at the airport for 12. Like, a lot of it's, supposed to be that way though, because it's a show. Like, they want to get you emotionally offset. They want to get you upset, angry, emotional. So it's all something, again, that I will probably never experience again, but it's fun to say that we did it.
So would you say you would do it if you had the opportunity again? Do you think you would do it?
I would have to think long and hard about it, but it's a long process to be committed to.
Right.
It's a month of filming. It's a month you got to take off from your life. And then there's a lot of, months where you can't really say anything about it either. And,
Sure.
I think I would. I definitely know Alex wouldn't though. So
Right.
I would have to find a new partner, but yeah, we'll certainly, if that opportunity presents itself, who knows?
So between the rehearsals and when the show started, how long was that?
There's no rehearsals. It was just like the audition.
That's what I mean.
Probably,
That's what I mean. Yeah.
yeah. The audition was probably in August, and filming started September 25th. So like, it wasn't a
right.
long period of time. Maybe it was July. Because I remember we took our photos together as a team at Pocono 2017, which I think was in August. Alex and I were taking photos together as like our team.
And you probably had to be, that was kind of a secret too, right? Like, you probably couldn't tell people why you were taking the photos.
Yeah, exactly. So it was all kind of like September 25 was, because like we were at Marco Andretti's wedding. That was the last event that we went to. And then like literally a day later, we had to leave to go film or start filming. And then you spend the first 5 days in wherever your start city is, filming the intro episode, filming all the stupid stuff, like our, like, hey, here's us, you know what I mean? And so, and then because they never tell you when you're going to leave either. So you're basically just sitting there until all of a sudden they're like, all right, well, you're 6 hours away from leaving. Here we go. So that was actually the worst part, was being locked in a hotel in New York City for 4 days and eating from the same menu for 4 days and just having nothing to do except watch a television.
Right. I can't even imagine. That would be crazy.
Like
well, sorry, go ahead.
It's like prison.
Yeah, I was about to say, it sounds like, prison or something.
Yeah.
Because you were on, I think it was on Hince's podcast, you were talking about, I think it was in LA, you guys were stuck in the hotel room for like 4 days, and somehow you guys, I think you hung out with 2 other girls or something. I forget the story, but it was something like that. And then you guys ended up getting in trouble, kind of.
Yeah, actually we did. In the audition process, I don't even remember who they were or what it, I really actually have no idea who they were. I actually don't remember at all. But yeah, we definitely got in trouble for sure in the audition process. And I don't know why, but Alex and I at the time were just like, we were so bored. And like, we literally didn't do anything except try to talk to people and just hang out. And yeah, we definitely got in trouble. And I don't even remember who they were. I really don't.
They didn't make the show. Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't make the show, but I really, now that you mentioned, like, I wish I remember who they were.
That's funny. Well, the last question I have, so obviously you've raced boats, you've raced midgets, obviously IndyCar, NASCAR. Is there anything else that, if you ever have the opportunity to race, that you would really like to race?
Well, I mean, right now I want to do Le Mans. Like Le Mans and the Daytona 500. I would love to be able to say I did the big 3 events, like Daytona 500, Indy 500, Le Mans 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, that it helps that I'm trying to get into NASCAR. Like, I want to do a couple more truck races next year. And eventually, be able to get approved for like super speedways in NASCAR or the Cup Series. And then, yeah, I really want to do Le Mans. Sports cars are really hard to break into right now. It seems like all the same names get hired unless you win the 500 or you got a really good factory connection. It's all the same people get hired. So I would love to do Le Mans, and at some point I think I will. But yeah, it just has to be the right situation, the right opportunity. And I would love, I feel like I've driven every sports car too possible now. I've driven prototypes. I've driven, the Lamborghini Super. I've driven big GT cars. I've won in big GT cars. So, happy to do whatever. And I don't crash stuff anymore. So like, actually I've never really crashed stuff ever. So definitely ready to hopefully do that at some point.
Have you done 24 Hours of Daytona?
Yeah, twice. Yeah, 2014 and 15, I think. Or yeah.
Right. No, it seems like a lot of people, like before Alonso did 24 Hours of Le Mans, he did Daytona. So it seems like kind of the first race people do before they do Le Mans.
Oh yeah. I really enjoyed it. I love the Rolex 24. Done the Sebring 12 hour. Finished on the podium in the Sebring 12 hour. Like I've enjoyed sports car racing when I've been in it. It's just hard to find the right opportunity. I always tell people, like, they're like, why don't you go sports car racing? I was like, ask Joseph Newgarden why he hasn't done any sports car racing yet. He's trying, but it's hard to get a seat. And like, Joseph's a double champion in IndyCar. Like, why is that guy not getting offered every single sports car seat ever? Because it just doesn't happen.
Right. Well, I remember like talking to Shelby Blackstock before, and he was saying like, well, obviously he was trying the IndyCar road. He was trying to get an IndyCar. He was doing Indy Lights, and he went into sports car racing. He was saying like it's a lot easier to get a ride at sports car racing, but he wasn't doing like the top level either. I mean, it seems like there's a lot more opportunities in sports car racing because each team has to have at least 2 drivers.
For sure, but then there's also the rating system, right? Like if you're a silver, like I'm sure Shelby was a silver, right? That's much better to get an opportunity there because you got to have a good silver driver if you want to compete, at a very high level in those GTD classes or the LMP2 class, whatever it is. I don't know which ones they require now, but also a lot of the gold drivers that like I'm a gold, like Alex would be gold, any of the IndyCar guys now are I believe are golds. A lot of people just need budget, and like Joseph Newgarden's not going to bring budget to a sports car team. You know what I mean? Like we're just everything that we have is going to try to go support like our lives first of all, but also like our IndyCar program. So, I don't have it's not like I have a play money budget that I can just be like, yeah, I got $100,000 I can bring to a sports car ride. Why not? It's like it's not. I just can't do that. Like I wish I could, but I just can't.
Right. Because if you did, I mean, then you would have probably a full ride IndyCar, and it wouldn't be a problem.
Yeah. If I had money to play with, yeah, it would be an entirely different scenario.
Well, Conor, really appreciate your time, and thanks so much for talking to us. And we really appreciate it.
No problem at all.
And best of luck next year, and hopefully, we'll hear an announcement from you in the coming months.
Thank you. Me too. I hope the same.
All right. Well, thanks, Conor. Appreciate it.
No problem.